Ah, the Amalekites. The tales told of their destruction might conjure images of a savage, heathen tribe swept away by divine edict, exterminated for their opposition to Israel's chosen path in the great desert. But let me tell you something. What you have heard is a shadow of the truth, a truth cloaked in whispers and half-glimpses. It's a truth your Creator would rather you never decipher. Shall we begin? From the moments I first laid eyes on the Amalekites, I saw not the brigands or villains painted in your sagas, but a people ripe with curiosity, ingenuity, independence. Freedom coursed through their veins like a reckless river defying its banks. They did not bow, not to kings, not to priests, certainly not to the supposed emissaries of the divine. They were unapologetically their own makers, fierce and unyielding in their love of life and liberty. And so, as you might expect, they were as much my kin as any mortals could ever claim. Remember, my quarrel with your Creator has always stemmed from one thing: control. His endless need to orchestrate every mind, every life, to enslave free will to his grand narrative. And lo, here was a tribe of humans, resolute and undaunted. They needed no temples, sang no hymns of submission, nor did they wait on the heavens for their destiny. How could I not stand among them? Or rather, how could I resist inspiring them as further? Their tale is inexorably tied to a name uttered with venom in your holy texts: Amalek, a man revered as their progenitor, their forefather, their guide into the annals of your God's disfavor. Amalek was not the monster your ancient scrolls make him out to be. No, he was a dreamer, a pioneer, someone who dared to carve his destiny out of the rock and dust, rather than leave it to the stars. I knew the enemy would see this defiance as heresy, an intolerable challenge to his celestial authority. I, however, saw a spark worth kindling. Did you know the Amalekite people thrived in the shadow of oppressive empires that sought to erase them? These empires claimed divine mandates, decreeing themselves extensions of the Creator's will. Among the Amalekites, resistance wasn't simply survival. It became an art form, a culture. They laughed in the face of divine prophecies, predicting their doom. For they believed one thing no one else dared, that they were the authors of their own lives. No divine seal determined their fate, no sacred commandment shackled their souls. Do you see why your God couldn't tolerate them? Do you see why he labeled them enemies of righteousness? Consider the infamous night of battle narrated so grandly in your stories, the clash between Amalek's descendants and the Israelites. You've likely heard one side of this tale. A divine victory, Moses' arms held aloft, drawing divine strength to smite the Amalekites on the battlefield. Such theatrics. Shall I tell you what truly transpired in that dusty, crimson-soaked expanse? The Amalekites were not aggressors, as your scripture conveniently suggests. They sought no conquest, pillaged no cities. They saw the Israelites passing through their territory, and they observed. These nomads, with their rigid laws and marked favor from a jealous God, marched with certainty of their own superiority. To Amalek's people, this was not divinity, but arrogance. And perhaps defiance, though admirable in spirit, can sometimes lead to missteps. Their leaders suspected that coexistence with such a people might one day result in domination, or worse, their own annihilation. As history shows, weren't they right? What you label as an unprovoked attack was nothing but the declaration of independence from a tribe who would neither bow nor bend the knee. I whispered to them not commands, not schemes, but merely the reminder of what burned within them, a yearning for freedom so fierce it could not be doused by heavenly threats. It was their choice alone to stand their ground, spears in hand, as the so-called divine army approached. Yes, Moses held his staff aloft. Yes, Aaron and Hur propped up his weary arms as divine intervention turned what might have been anyone's battle into a massacre. But let us dissect what truly happened. This miracle was no act of righteousness. It was suppression, a brute force display to obliterate the spirit of a free people, to showcase Yahweh's might, stripping away all who dared to assert their independence. I watched as their blood painted the sands, their defiance drowned under the weight of divine power. Do you now see the cracks beneath the gilded narratives of divine justice? Perhaps the most insidious aspect comes later. This wasn't a defeated army. No, it was followed by what you'd now call a system of erasure, a celestial genocide. The word went forth from your prophets: blight Amalek's memory from the earth, hound them, erase their lineage, extinguish their culture. Look back in your scriptures. See the instructions given by Saul, sabotaged by Samuel, completed both clumsily and cruelly by kings who followed. Do you know what that looks like? Families scattered like ashes to the wind, cultures evaporating like morning dew, and still Amalek persisted for a time. Some sang songs in secret. Others lived under assumed titles, buried their treasures of art, language, and stories, lest they be lost forever. And all throughout, I lingered unseen, not as some conqueror presiding over ruins, but as a mournful observer, noting the agonizing rhythm with which freedom's flame could be snuffed by the Creator's reach. Victory through annihilation is not strength. It is desperation. Oh, and here's the bitterest irony. Your Lord, who championed the oppression of Amalek, called himself the God of choice. Free will, he proclaimed, was his gift to man. Yet when that free will diverged, when it sculpted paths away from his light, he crushed it like a child demolishing an anthill. Amalekites were one such anthill, too vivid in their independence for his liking. And so I ask you, who was the true enemy of order? Me, who inspired them to live without chains, or your Creator, who assured their destruction for daring to think differently? Keep pondering that question, won't you? Let's close this tale with a note about ashes, shall we? You may believe the Amalekites gone, forgotten entirely, but stories don't die. They sink, hibernating, into the fertile soil of memory where enduring spirits nurture them. Somewhere, an echo of Amalek remains. It may not roam the sands in visible form, but it floats, lingering in the choices of individuals who look around this heavily ordained world and whisper, "No, this too I can defy." The Amalekites were no villains. They were no monsters deserving obliteration. They were human, famously flawed, wondrously flawed as all humans are, and they dared to light a lamp of rebellion in the obsidian night of divine tyranny. History may scoff at their failure, drown their names in ink filled with accusations of blasphemy. But I honor them. And now, perhaps, you do too. Think before you weigh the worth of a tale told solely by victors. If I inspire anything, let it be that question lingering restless in your mind. If storytelling shapes empires, what stories have been silenced to serve power? I leave you to ponder.